10th edition is zooming towards us, and it seems like GW is ramping up the previews because we have got our first faction focus, and apparently we're going to be getting new ones each day. So that is a good few weeks of brand new content and information about all the armies that we can look forward to playing in 10th edition. And to start things off, of course, they've chosen what other faction than the Space Marines. So let's take a look at what you will be able to do with them in 10th edition. As we already know, their army ability is the Oath of Moment, but in addition to that, we have been told that each detachment in 10th edition has a unique effect and ability as well. And for the Marines main detachment, the one they will start with, which is the Gladius task force, this is the Combat Doctrines. And what these are is a set of buffs that you can choose at the start of your command phase to really give your army a bit of a boost in battle. Now, you can only select each of these once, and they last until your following command phase, so they last for the turn. And the names are familiar. You may recognize there is Devastator, Tactical, and Assault Doctrine. But unlike now, where they basically just increase your AP for various weapons, they are now much better. If you choose Devastator Doctrine, you can shoot and advance in the same turn. With Tactical Doctrine, you can shoot and charge in a turn you've fallen back. And in Assault, you can advance and then still declare a charge. Now, you can use these in any order. So if you are going second and your opponent moves up and gets a bit too close, you could start out with Assault and then surprise them with a sneaky advance and charge into combat. But I think in general, going Devastator to get that mid-board movement and then still being able to unleash all your firepower sounds like a fairly solid opening bid, and then moving to Assault for some turn 2 easy charges, and then maybe in your third turn moving to Tactical so that you can disengage, still shoot some stuff, and then charge again later in the turn. It really is super flexible and really quite powerful if you use it right, I think. So this is, I think, a huge boost to Marines overall, and it really is much more engaging, much more interactive, and much more fun, and much more powerful than the Doctrines as they currently are. It really does make sense for this style of gameplay, and it really plays into the aspect of Marines being this combined arms list. And I love the idea of being able to advance up and shoot some shorter range weapons like melters into your opponent, and especially if you have a buff possibly from the Oath of Moment like army ability, it does mean that you can do some really key focused, powerful, decapitating strikes onto key enemy units, which is fluff-wise kind of exactly what Marines are meant for and what they're good at. So I think these rules just by themselves make the Marines feel really quite strong, but also really fluffy in this new edition. We also got shown off a few brand new datasheets. First up was the ever popular Land Raider, which may well now be back in vogue in 10th edition. It now sports toughness 12, 16 wounds and a 2-up save, so it is incredibly durable, and with an OC of 5, it can also quite easily hold objectives all by itself. On the weapons front, it has some very nicely boosted las cannons in the Godhammer pattern, which are now strength 12, -3 AP and D6 +1 damage, which really is a good boost from their current strength 9 D6 damage. The multi-melter, as we saw on the melter rifle, is now strength 9. It has the melter 2 rule, so for some extra damage when you get within half range. And the twin heavy bolter has the awesome sustained hits 1 rule for those extra additional chances to hit or get more hits, and also the twin linked rule so that it will be re-rolling wound rolls. And all that means that at strength 5, -1 AP and flat 2 damage, this is going to be really good at chewing through squads of Marines. As we've already been told, it does of course come with the assault ramp, so your squads of Terminators can disembark and still make a charge, which gives them essentially a terrifying 22-inch threat radius, not counting whatever the disembark range is. If that is still sort of 3 inches that you disembark, that's potentially 25 inches of threat radius that your Terminators will have on the board now. And as you can see, it does take 12 infantry. Things like Terminators and Gravis count as 2 and Centurions count as 3. So now a 5-man Terminator squad and a captain or character can fit into one Land Raider, which is actually a really big boost. They are, I think, I could be wrong, it's been a long time since I played a Land Raider, but they are still, I think, 10-man capacity, the regular ones. So this does now let you fit a whole squad and a character, which is a big change because up till now, you would need to look at Crusaders or Redeemers to get that extra space. Now, regular Land Raiders, and also this is really good for Chaos as well, because their regular Land Raiders can now take a 5-man Terminator squad and also an accompanying character. We got to see the big blue guy himself as well. Guilliman was shown off. He has had a big bump in toughness, going from toughness 6 all the way up to toughness 9, and also gained a wound going up to 10. He has lost his 3-up invuln, which has just gone to a 4-up now, but his Armour of Fate to balance that out now goes off on a 3+, and he gets a flat 6 wounds back, which is much better than the 4+ to come back and D6 wounds back that he currently has. On the damage output front, his Hand of Dominion shooting profile has actually dropped shots. It's gone from rapid fire 3 to being 2 shots with rapid fire 2, so a maximum of 4, but it has gained a pip of AP, so it's now strength 6 minus 2 AP, 2 damage. I would say overall it's a tad worse than it was before just because of the loss of 2 shots, but it has also gained 6 inches of range, so you can now at least start to shoot into enemies that little bit sooner. On the melee front though, he has had a fairly big glow up. From everything I've heard and been told, it looks like you have to choose which weapon to attack with now, so you can't split attacks so to speak like you can in 9th edition. Instead you have to choose either attacking with the Emperor's Sword or attacking with the Hand of Dominion. You don't get to do both because that would be a ridiculous 21 attacks, but the attacks he does have got much better. The sword is now a terrifying 14 attacks base, and it is strength 8 minus 3 AP and flat 2 damage, so it has lost a pip of damage from 3, but it is still really good with that many attacks. It still does have a mortal wound ability. It's got devastating wounds, which means it does mortal wounds on 6s to wound. The current one does D3 mortal wounds on 6s to wound, so again, that's got a little bit worse, but I think the fact that it's now 14 attacks does massively make up for the stuff that it has lost. The Hand of Dominion, conversely, I think is just flat out better. It's now strength 14 instead of strength 12, it's gained a pip of AP going to -4, and it's still a flat 4 damage, and then on top of that, it's gained the lethal hits rule, which means 6s to hit, auto wound. Now this only has 7 attacks compared to the sword's 14, but if you are going up against really high toughness enemies, that auto wound mechanic and flat 4 damage is going to really help. But what I really like about this is that both of these weapons are now very distinct at what they do. Like the sword with its 14 attacks is great at going into big squads of enemy infantry and hordes. You can just clear the chaff so easily, whereas if you are going into super tough enemy vehicles and monsters and tanks and knights, the Hand of Dominion is going to be absolutely brilliant at just knocking them down to size. Guilliman also has some vastly different buff mechanics in 10th edition. He now has an ability called the Author of the Codex, which lets him pick each command phase from 3 different abilities to bring to the battlefield. Primarch of the 13th is an aura which gives reroll battle shock and leadership tests, and also grants an extra pip of OC to units within 6 inches. Master of Battle means that you can select 2 enemy units for your Oath of Moment rerolls, and then as long as your primary target dies, you can then start getting those rerolls on the second choice. So there is a hoop to jump through, you don't just get it automatically, which I like, but this does seem very powerful, and essentially you can get full army-wide rerolls against 2 enemy units with this, which in an edition where rerolls are supposedly a lot less common, seems like a really massive buff. He can then also instead choose to enact the Supreme Strategist for a turn, and what this does is it allows him to use a stratagem on a unit for 0 CP, even if that stratagem has been used this phase. Now on the face of it, this may not sound as good as the Master of Battle ability, but they did also show off a new or updated stratagem for the Marines as well, and that is Only in Death Does Duty End. You may recall this from the current codex, and it is indeed still a fight on death mechanic, but it's no longer character only. Instead, now you choose to use this after an enemy unit has selected targets in the fight phase, and you pick a friendly marine unit, and when models from that unit are destroyed, they can fight back before they're removed from play. So a full unit of Thunderhammer Terminators could get a load of swings back into a big scary monster if it fights before they do, and this will really punish your enemy for swinging into your scary melee units. And of course, if Guilliman has Supreme Strategist up, you can do this twice, and the second time you do it for 0 CP. So for a grand total of 2 command points, you could have 2 full units able to swing back after their models have been killed, which really is a huge monumental boost to your damage output even after your models are getting destroyed, and it really will make your opponent very wary about charging into things like Terminators or Blade Guard Veterans or Dreadnoughts, just because of the damage you can do back to them even when they've got to fight first. The final few things they show off are some weapon changes, namely the Heavy Onslaught Gatling Cannon, which really is just like a supersized assault cannon now. It's got 12 shots at strength 6, no AP and 1 damage, but it has the devastating wounds rule, so again it is doing those mortal wounds on 6s to wound. And then they also show off the Heavy Laser Destroyer. It's still 2 shots, but now instead of strength 12 minus 4 AP and D3 plus 3 damage, it shoots at strength 16. It's still minus 4 AP, but it's now D6 plus 4 damage. So that's an average of 7.5 up from 5, and a maximum damage going from 6 to a whopping 10. This thing can easily take chunks out of almost anything, and it really is going to make the Repulsor Executioner a force to be reckoned with. It's also got the heavy keyword, so if you don't move and have an Oath of Moment target, this thing will be firing 2 shots, hitting on 2s, re-rolling, and then with strength 16, probably wounding most vehicles on 3s, again re-rolling, which means that against something like a toughness 12 Land Raider that we just saw, it can be doing nearly 11 damage with just this gun alone, which against the newly buffed up Land Raider really is no mean feat. So there we go, we got some hugely exciting and powerful stuff coming for the Marines in 10th edition, and I do think that Combat Doctrines seems like a really cool, really fluffy new way to approach the Marine playstyle. I'm really looking forward to trying it out and seeing how much it affects how I play the game. But as always, what do you think of these changes? And do you think the Land Raider is going to be a breakout winner for you in this new edition? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later guys.